What do you know? Welcome to the first episode of the From Iowa with Love podcast, hosted by myself, Colin Peters. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Where to start? Where to start today? Well, let's start by what is this podcast? I suppose this will be a sports podcast that'll feature a wide range of coverage, I suppose. I'll talk about University of Iowa sports quite a bit. We'll get into a little bit of that later. And sports in the state of Iowa in general, I'll try and cover a little bit of. I'll also cover main topics in sports. Like today, we'll be touching on the NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, and also the World Hockey Championships that finished up. Then I will also have a segment later on called, which originally is called The Unusual Sport of the Week, where I research and tell you guys about a sport that you may not know of, a very unusual sport, and we got a good one this week. So that will hopefully be a weekly thing, which is also my goal for this podcast, to be a weekly thing. So yeah, that's kind of the goal for this. I mean, it's free to change on the fly. I mean, we're only one episode in, so free to make changes. Feel free to suggest any changes. Enough blabbering about the podcast. Let me introduce myself. And a little background of me. I'm currently going to be a senior at the University of Iowa. I'm studying sports studies and journalism, double major in that. So I thought I'd start a little podcast up. I figured that'd be a little bit of fun, and lets me talk about sports. Let me vent it out to you guys, and maybe you'll enjoy it, maybe you won't. But we'll see. But I'm not just dedicated to Iowa sports. I went to Urbandale High School. I played everything from baseball, basketball, golf. I've played all the sports. There's a whole spiel about that you can check out my background history on my blog page, and I'll leave a link into that. In the description and stuff. I'll make sure to leave a bunch of links to everything I talk about in the description so you guys can go check that stuff out. But yeah, I'm a Cubs fan. Been a Cubs fan for life. Being born in Iowa, went to a lot of Iowa Cubs games, so I got to see a lot of the prospects and stuff for the team. Very excited for what's in store this year, and I'll probably dive into a little bit of that as the year goes on. For hockey, I'm a Colorado Avalanche fan. When I was growing up, I watched the greats of Joe Sakic, Patrick Waugh, Peter Forsberg, and fell in love with that team and been a fan of them ever since. And they had a tough season this year, but anyway, also NBA, Memphis Grizzlies, who ironically now have a D-League team in Iowa, which is pretty exciting. But I was a fan of them a little bit before that, but very excited about them. Interested to see what they have in store this summer. Probably the most interesting of my sports fandoms is my NFL team, the Oakland Raiders, which many of you will probably question and wonder, but they're on the up and up, which is very exciting. But like I said, you can check out a lot more in-depth about that on my blog page, on my history with those teams and whatnot. But I figured I'd give you guys a little bit of history of myself and what I'm all about. So with that behind us, let's dive into our first topic here, into our Iowa sports section. We'll start off with probably the biggest one this past week, and that is Peter Jok returning for his senior season. Now, this isn't really a huge surprise. I think a lot of people expected him to be back. He was really just testing the waters. Didn't sign with an agent. He did have a workout with the New Orleans Pelicans, but he did not get invited to the combine, the draft combine that 70 players got invited to. So that was probably one of the indications that he was probably not going to be drafted. But I think it was a good experience for him. He unfortunately couldn't get other workouts besides Pelicans because he suffered an injury. I believe a strained ligaments in his thumb. So that kind of hurt his chances to get some more workouts in. But apparently he did pretty well in his one workout and got a lot of good feedback. So that's good for him. Gives him some things to work on this summer and leading into next season. But it's really exciting because now Iowa has their go-to guy back for next year, especially with losing Utah, losing Gazelle, Clemens, and Woodbury. And they need that. They need that experience. They need that leadership, and I think Peter is really gonna embrace that this upcoming year. Now, there was also a weird rumor going around that I didn't really hear about too much, that McCaffrey and Peter had, kind of an off relationship, I guess. It's a poor way to put it, but apparently they had some beef between them or something, was the rumor, and they both deny it, and I don't see that really being a thing. I mean, I think people were trying to think of reasons why Pete was testing the draft, and I don't think it was because he had problems with Coach McCaffrey. I mean, Coach McCaffrey he'll always be hard on the young players. He's still hard on Pete this year, even though he was a junior, but I think he'll be a little more lenient his senior year. I think Pete knows the things he should and shouldn't do that can agitate Coach McCaffrey, so I don't think there's anything wrong with there. I mean, Coach McCaffrey has always been tough on the younger guys, trying to give them teaching points and everything, and I think that's the way it should be, the way he should coach like that. But that's the whole different thing on upcoming basketball year that I'll get into later on. But this is a very good news for the Iowa Hawkeye basketball team. I mean, when you got a guy who's coming off a huge, really jumping into his stride. I mean, 16 points a game as a senior, or as a junior rather. After coming off, I think he averaged 7 points a game his sophomore year. I mean, I didn't expect him to make that kind of jump. I mean, I knew he had that kind of potential, and that's really awesome for him to make that kind of jump. And I expect him to probably be around those numbers. Maybe gets up to 18 points a year next year. Really depends on who steps up besides him, because that's a huge question mark, I think. But I think he'll have consistent production. They'll be running screens off of, just like last year. He'll be running off of screens. And there was also some talk, I guess, that he may be bringing the ball up as well, because there's not really a true point guard on this team. You got a lot of combo guards that can play point guard, and maybe they'll develop into some true point guards, but there's really no Mike Gazelle. There's really no Anthony Clemens. There's just a lot more Devin Marbles, basically, guys that can bring the ball up but aren't really true point guards that can run an offense. And, that can be a little concerning, but, the up-tempo style that Coach McCaffrey likes doesn't necessarily need a point guard, so I think it'll be interesting to see him take on multiple positions as a senior year and maybe work his way into a first-round draft pick. But moving on now, after that is the Iowa baseball team is on to the Big Ten tournament this week. They've had kind of a down year. I wouldn't say a down year, but after last year's incredible run into the NCAA tournament, they've kind of regressed a little bit and have fallen into an 8th seed in the Big Ten tournament, and they'll be taking on the number 1 seed Minnesota Golden Gophers, who finished with a 16-7 conference record. And they'll be playing Wednesday night at 5. You can watch that on the Big Ten Network. It's going to be a tough game for them. I mean, they've been hovering around 500 all year. Couldn't really get going like they did last year. So it'll be interesting to see if they can put together some wins. It's a double elimination tournament, so they'll have their chances, even if they lose Wednesday night versus Minnesota. But it's very far-fetched to see them, making it into the NCAA tournament. They got a lot of work ahead of them. So it's kind of cool because they're going to get to play at TD Ameritrade Park in Omaha, which is host of the College World Series. So they'll play in a great venue. Hopefully have a decent crowd travel to them. I mean, there's usually a lot of Nebraska fans there, and obviously because it's in Nebraska, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of crowd they draw. But that's a very nice ballpark over there, and so they'll have their chance to see what they can do over there. Hopefully string together some wins, try and end the season on a high note against a very good Minnesota team. But they've had their chances this year. They've had a couple tough losses. They've finished the year 12-12 in league play, 27-25 overall, just barely over 500. Where the Gophers went, their number 1 seed, they're 34-18 overall. They took the series against Iowa in the regular season, taking 2 or 3 games in Minneapolis in early April, and so they've got their number pretty early. But this is a 1-game showdown, so anything can happen. But it's going to be interesting to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that all works out for the baseball team. So good luck to the baseball team. Also, I forgot to mention with the Peter Jock thing, happy birthday to Coach Fran McCaffrey today. The big 5'7" for Coach. So happy birthday to him. Hope he has a great day. I don't know when this will be released. I also want to mention, I think I'm recording this on Monday. My goal is for it to be out Tuesday morning. So anything I say will probably be a day behind, so you got to forgive me on that a little bit. But yeah, just a little heads up, a little side note there. The last thing I want to talk about for Iowa is that Iowa high school baseball starts today. So their big journey starts today to go to Principal Park in the big state tournament. I went to the state tournament a lot when I was younger. My dad he'd always take the week off, and we'd go down there and watch all the teams play. It's always been a fun event, always a fun thing to go see, all the small schools, and they're crazy. They bring a really good crowd in some of those schools, and seeing some of those players and the way they play, it's always fun. So, and for my hometown, Urbandale, they're moving past Barton baseball, and basically Coach Barton was the coach for God knows how long for the Urbandale baseball team, and he retired after this past season. So a new era begins in Urbandale baseball. So I'm looking forward to that. But I just thought I'd say good luck to all the Urbandale high school, or Urbandale especially, but all the Iowa high school baseball players out there that dedicate their summer to baseball, because that is really a time-consuming grind that is most of your, if not all of your summer, is put into baseball. So good luck to all you guys. I salute you. Have fun this season, and try and go win yourself a championship for your school. All right, so now moving on to our main meat and potatoes. We're going to start off with let's start off with the NBA playoffs. And wow, what a interesting turn it has taken for both the West and the East. Last night, we'll start in the West because that's got some interesting topics. So in the West, the Thunder currently lead the Warriors 2-1 in the series. Now, I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. I mean, ESPN's Skip Bayless, bless his heart, said he'd be surprised if the Thunder won one game in this series. They're up 2-1. They beat the Warriors by 40 last night. Around 40. I'm being a little exaggerate, but they destroyed them. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook didn't play the fourth quarter. They were shooting 60% at the end of the third. I mean, that is crazy. I mean, you win 133-5. I mean, you are on your home floor, I suppose, but that's just outrageous to do against this Warriors team that is getting put up against the Chicago Bulls as the best team ever. I don't think I could be wrong. I didn't research this, but I'm pretty sure the Bulls never lost by 30 in a playoff game or in the regular season. So, I don't know. I mean, they got to defend. They got to stop Westbrook and Durant, and they have to make adjustments defensively. I thought offensively they were all right. I mean, you can always improve your offense, but you never nobody would ever think to say, if the Warriors are shooting well, nobody's going to beat them. Well, if you're giving up 130 points, you're going to lose. So that theory's kind of out, I think, with the Thunder have now proven it. Even if the Warriors shoot well, you have to stop Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. Because, I mean, their usage percentage for that team is unbelievable. I mean, probably, once again, I didn't look this up, but I think like 75% of their points are coming from those two guys, either from them scoring or from them assisting on scoring. So, I mean, the usage with them, I mean, you just got to shut them down. Because they are the heart and soul of that team, whether that's getting them in foul trouble, whether that's double teaming them. I mean, they got some decent role guys, that can make some shots. So, I mean, you still gotta help him recover. But I think it's just crazy that the Thunder have done what they've done. I mean, I don't think a whole lot of people expected them to take down the machine that is the San Antonio Spurs. But they did, and they did pretty handily. Being a Grizzlies fan and watching that series against the Spurs, I mean, you just see how much, how good that team is, how much they work as a team. And with LaMarcus Aldridge in there and, David West off the bench, you just think, that team is a machine. But the Thunder overcame that machine, and now they lead 2-1. Now, as a Grizzlies fan, again, I've seen this 2-1 lead against this Warriors team before last year, with the Grizzlies going up 2-1, which a lot of people were probably more. That'd be interesting to see from you guys out there. Were you more surprised this year when the Thunder go up 2-1, or last year when the Grizzlies went up 2-1? Because I feel like it was both. I take that back. That was in the second round. But they were both series that going in you expected, handily to be the Warriors. And after game one, I think the Thunder won game one. Yeah, they did. But after game one of the Grizzlies, everybody's like, all right, it's a sweep. It's over. And then they go on to win 2 games. So I don't believe this series is over, even after this game. I don't think the Thunder have their number quite yet. They still will have to make some adjustments. And, the Warriors, when they come out after a loss, man, They come out. I mean, after game one, you can see it. Game one, the Thunder won by 6. Game two, the Warriors win by 20. So after losses, they come out extremely motivated and extremely focused, and I expect the exact same to happen in game 4. I think they're going to be motivated. They're going to come out with a vengeance. I'm not buying quite yet that the Thunder have this wrapped up. I mean, the Warriors are too talented, too well coached. They know what they're doing. And also another little drama, I guess, is unfolding in this series. It's starting to get a little heated, as series do, with the lovely groin shot. I mean, I don't think there's an official name for it yet, but it's becoming a very popular subject of Draymond Green kneeing Steven Adams right in the groin, right where the sun don't shine. All sorts of names for of that. And it's a question of was it on purpose, and does it deserve a suspension? And that's a very heated topic. Draymond Green says on his side, I didn't mean to. I wouldn't do that on purpose to a man, And then you look at the other side, and Russell Westbrook, sticking up for his teammate as, any teammate would, says, he did that on purpose. And it's a very back and forth, heated thing. And, it's, you look at Dante Jones of the Cavaliers, and, the 1-game suspension that he got for what he did. And, you think that was I don't know if you give that a 1-game suspension. So looking at this, I think this, in my opinion, is suspension worthy. I think it's pretty blatant. He's going to try and deny it all he can, but it's I hate it because I'm not a fan of Steven Adams. He's like an enforcer in basketball. He's like a grinder. He's a grinder of basketball. He's the enforcer of basketball. He's in there. He does some good things, basketball-wise, but he's really in there to just, agitate the shit out of, your stars and really get under their skin. And he's really good at that. And I'm just, he does his job well. It's just I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm not a fan of guys that get under their skin in the way that he does. But I suppose, when you do it that well, and if it's effective, that's the way he does. And he walks that line so well, where he just doesn't cross it enough to get himself into trouble, but he does it enough to get other people in trouble. Once again, another great thing to look up, the amount of flagrants or suspensions that have been caused by Steven Adams but given to the other player that was involved in Steven Adams has to be through the roof, because that's just the player that he is. He walks that line and gets other people in trouble. He's like the little brother, the little annoying brother that agitates the big brother so much that the big brother just has to hit the little brother. The little brother goes crying to mom, and mom punishes the big brother. Not to say that I ever did that. Believe me, I didn't. But that's just kind of how I think of Steven Adams. So unfortunately for Draymond Green, that's what I think is going to happen. I think, depending on how the NBA looks at it, how long they take to review it. As I'm recording this, there hasn't been a decision yet. Maybe it will just be a fine. Who knows? But I think it warrants a 1 or 2 game suspension. You can't do that. You just can't do that. There's no place for that in the game. And it looked on purpose. And even if it wasn't, I don't know. I've watched it so many times. It's a tough thing. So that's my opinion on it. Going to the East now. I think everyone expected this, that the Cavs would be handling this quite well. And I'm not surprised Toronto took Game 3. Really, I'm not. I figured once they get home and play in front of that Toronto crowd that they thrive off of, and get DeRozan and Lowry going, that they could beat the Cavs. And they did. And, I think they could potentially take another one at home. I think this is one of those things where, in this matchup especially, it's defending your home court. And both teams do that really well. But someone's got to find a way to steal one on the road. And that's got to be Toronto. I think they can hold home court fine. I think DeRozan and Lowry will play well and shoot well. And, Biyombo has been playing great down low, gobbling up rebounds, being a good shot blocker. You got to stop the big three. Well, you're not going to really stop LeBron that much. If you can stop Kyrie and stop Kevin Love and get lucky that J.R. Smith doesn't get hot, you can stop the Cavs. That's a lot of things a lot of ifs, but when that all happens, that's the recipe for stopping the Cavs. And they were able to do that in Game 3. I think they'd be able to do that in Game 4. But going to Cleveland and being able to do that is the real test for Toronto. And, I don't know if having Valanciunas back will help. I think Biyombo's playing great. I don't think Valanciunas is going to be a difference maker in this series. I think the difference makers are, Lowry and DeRozan. And if they can, play well enough, trying to limit LeBron, try and tire him down, and limit Kyrie, limit Kevin Love. You gotta limit the three as well. Cleveland shoots the three very well. They have an NBA playoff record, I believe, of like 23s in a game or something like that. So, you gotta limit that. Gotta close out well, but turnovers as well. You can't let the Cavs drive. It's gonna be an interesting series to see if somebody can steal it on the road. Obviously, Game 4 is huge. If Cleveland wins Game 4, the series is over. So it's a must-win Game 4 for Toronto. I think going to Cleveland for Game 5, it doesn't really matter too much. I think they can lose that game and still be in good shape. But they have to win Game 4 if they want any chance of beating the Cavs. But even, I gave them a very small margin just because how LeBron has been in the NBA Finals for like the last 5 seasons. He always finds a way to get there. He owns the East. He is the king of the East. He'll find a way. So, this Toronto team, great team. I don't think it has quite enough to beat the Cavs. So now, switching gears a little bit, let's talk about the NHL playoffs, because the semis have been, or the conference finals, semifinals have been very odd. It's just been a very odd series. You look at the West. We'll start at the West. You had a great Game 1. St. Louis won 2-1. And then it's just like, what happened? You look at Game 2, 3, and 4. Blowout 4-0 San Jose. Blowout 3-0 San Jose. Blowout St. Louis 6-3. The back and forth is crazy. And we had a little bit of those blowouts in the East as well, but they got a lot closer with the comebacks. But there was a moment where it was like a full week of hockey that was just straight up blowouts. And that's but it's not all blowouts by one team, it was blowouts by both teams, which is just crazy. That is just madness to me. But I wouldn't be surprised if any one of these 4 teams, once they get it straight, that any one of these 4 teams could easily win the Stanley Cup. So, I mean, especially with, we'll start in the West, like I said. The Blues have 2 goalie system going. They're going to ride who's hot. And, Brian Elliott and Jake Allen. It'll be back and forth. Both those guys have the ability to get hot. And we've seen a great playoff series from San Jose from their older veterans like Joe Pavelski and, Thornton. And Brett Burns in the back has been great. And I think the biggest surprise has been Martin Jones, who came over from LA in the offseason. How great he's been this season, and how well he's played for San Jose. I mean, he's got 2 shutouts in the series. He got blown up, obviously, in Game 4, but overall, he's had a great year. And, it's been a welcoming surprise, I think, for San Jose, as well as with their older guys, liking to see them have, Patrick Marleau as well. Getting to see those guys have a run. And even young guys like Thomas Hertl. I mean, he's been up and down in the NHL, and it's good to see him, reaching his potential. I mean, I remember his rookie year. He had a hat trick early on in the year, and he finished off that hat trick, or it was his 3rd or 4th goal, with the between the legs shot. And I mean, the talent is there. Just seeing him put that together is very exciting for San Jose fans, I gotta imagine. But going into the playoffs, I actually had the Blues reaching the finals because they've got a loaded team, and they got talent all over. They got Tarasenko. They've got Troy Brouwer, who they got in a trade with Washington in exchange for TJ Oshie, or TJ Sochi as I like to call him. Fabry has been great. That their defense has been phenomenal, I think, in both offense and defense. It's just the goaltending has been a little bit shaky back and forth. Both guys can get hot, but I still think, even though with the 2 goalie system, I still think they get past the Sharks overall in this series. But it's a good one. I would not be surprised to see it go 7. And I kind of hope it does, because it's great back and forth. I'd like to see some closer games rather than just blowouts from each team. But it'll be interesting to see who steps up in that series for both sides moving forward. And with the East, I mean, we've had some great games from Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. I mean, got 2 overtime games. I believe 3 of the 5 have been 1-goal games, and the others have been 2-goal games. So, I mean, it's been a very intense series. It's been a really good overall, and I think the biggest storyline had to be Ben Bishop going down, and the Lightning fans just going, oh no, another injury. Because, I mean, they're without Stamkos. They were without Anton Stralman. They were banged up. They had JT Brown, I believe, was out as well. They had some guys out, and I didn't have them going very far. I had them losing in the first round, but this was a team that made it to the finals last year, and even without some of their guys, they are finding a way to get there. And Vasilevsky has played well enough to give him the win. Nikita Kucherov has had a fantastic playoffs. He had 2 goals. He had the game winner in overtime in that past game, I believe. And then in overtime, Jason Garrison with the shot, and Tyler Johnson deflects off of him and in. I mean, it's a team that's coming off, last year, and they're stepping up, even without Stamkos, which makes it an interesting summer with Stamkos being in free agency. How do they pay him? Do they keep him? Is he going to Toronto? This is kind of showing that they don't really need him. So, I mean, he might be going elsewhere, and Jonathan Drouin has been having a pretty good playoffs as well. And it's good to see that, with all the drama he went through this year, especially Avalanche, kind of. I don't know if they officially looked into it, but that would have been interesting to see if they could pull off that trade. But also, Matt Murray has been a great story for the Penguins this this playoffs. He didn't get the start in Game 5. It was actually Marc-Andre Fleury. And Fleury, he was coming in. He was really excited. I mean, you could see it in the pregame. You could see it in the game as it started. He was excited to finally be back in net. And it was a big opportunity for him. And then the frustration of, letting him score with 3 minutes left to tie it and then letting him score early in overtime. You feel bad for him. That was his opportunity to get it back. And I think they'll probably go back with Murray in Game 6. But, it's a tough break for Marc-Andre Fleury. And it'll be interesting to see going into the offseason if he remains there now with the emergence of Matt Murray. I assume he will be. But, like I said, you never know. But that's another good series. I wouldn't be surprised if either or of these games go into 7. And the Penguins line of Hagelin and Phil Kessel has been great. Malkin, you're still kind of waiting on him. Crosby has been pretty good. You kind of need Malkin to step up. I don't know if, you need to move him around, if you need to move him with Crosby. I don't know. But they're going to need him in these last couple of games. I mean, you can't let that Phil Kessel line, they can't let everything beyond that. But, I mean, that's been a surprising story as well, the emergence of Phil Kessel on this team. He's just a guy, when you look at him, you don't think, from an outside of hockey perspective, that's just a guy that you don't think is going to be a great player. He doesn't have that physique, but he's sneaky good. He has a sneaky quick wrister and, a pretty high hockey IQ. So it's going to be interesting. It's going back to Tampa, I believe. And it's going to be interesting to see who emerges for either side to take that series. And it's been very exciting now to see these conference finals could potentially both go 7 and see some really good hockey, some really desperate hockey teams, and have that leading into the Stanley Cup. So I'm looking forward to that. And keeping on the hockey note, let's talk a little bit about the World Hockey Championships that just finished up. And I watched quite a few of those games. Obviously, Team USA finishing in 4th place, a little disappointing. They had a couple disappointing losses, especially to Germany in overtime. But they had their chances against Canada, especially in the semifinals. They had a great game against the Czech in the quarterfinals. Very exciting game. But, the Canada game, it was tough to watch. It was a tough game to lose. They went down early 2-0. And, at that point, you're like, here we go again. They're rolling on all cylinders. And then they just came out firing. U.S. did in the second period, getting a power play goal and then getting 2 quick goals. And you're thinking, okay, you're up 3-2. Just play good, solid hockey. Don't go into the turtle, and they'll be fine. And took some bad penalties, and that's you don't want to do that against Canada. You can't let Canada get on the power play. Their power play is unbelievable, and they made them pay for it, and just couldn't get that 4th goal, and took the 4-3 loss. And I think you could tell the disappointment. And just like in the Olympics, that disappointment carried over into the 3rd place game. And they just got smoked by Russia 7-2. And, just like I believe they lost to Finland in the Olympics in the 3rd place game. I can't remember if it was that same score or not, but I remember they getting smoked in that third place game. When you're that close to the finals, it's tough to regain that motivation, to get a bronze medal other than to get a gold medal. And, Canada's a great team. They were playing with a lot of talent. The U.S., they had a couple minor leaguers. They had a couple college kids. Their NHL players weren't their top flight, NHL players. But with what they did have, I thought, all in all, they did pretty well. They had some good games, but they didn't really have anybody stand out too much. Austin Matthews had a couple of great plays that really showcased why he'll probably be number one pick in the draft upcoming. But all in all, there wasn't really anybody that stepped up. You look at the scoring leaders for the tournament, and the U.S. there's nobody in the U.S. in the top 10. It's all the top three are actually Russian. You got Artemi Panarin from the Blackhawks that had a great tournament, scoring 15 points, 6 goals, as well as Dadonov had 13 points. And then Patrick Laney, this was my first time watching him, and he could easily be a number one pick in his own right at the winger position. He's a very important piece on that Finland power play, has a great slap shot, plays a very powerful style of hockey, and I think he'll be a very good winger. More than likely going to be taken by Winnipeg, which is a division rival of the Avalanche, so I'm not real excited to see him, getting to see the Avalanche play him a couple times a year. That's going to be a little scary. Granlund also had a great tournament for Finland. And then Canada, they had Brassard, Matt Duchene, which I was very happy to see play well for the Avalanche after he had a pretty good season. And Koivu and Mark Stone finished out the top 10. But, very impressive Canada team. It was kind of fun to see Matt Duchene and Ryan O'Reilly get back together. You can still see they are still friends after both being selected in the same draft to the Avalanche. But it was an exciting tournament. Not a whole lot of surprises. But another tournament, another Canadian victory. Although Finland almost got the unprecedented, I believe they won World Juniors, they won the under 18, and they very well could have took the World Championships as well. So Finland, it's very excited to see what they've been able to do with youth hockey and hockey in general. There's a lot of good players coming out of Finland, so good for them. But overall, very exciting tournament. Gets me even more excited for the World Cup to happen in the fall with all the top tier players. I'm still a little iffy on that. I'm sure I'll have an article or a podcast talking about that because, although it's going to be an interesting concept to see the North American team and the European team and the under 23 teams or whatever that they're forming. It's going to be interesting to see how that team works together, but I think it's just better having the countries in general, play together. But it's going to be fun to see that top-notch talent on display. Again, it's always fun to see international play, which gets me very excited for the Olympics this summer as well. So, yeah, all in all, good effort by USA. Would have liked to see a medal, but didn't quite bring in the top talent that Canada did. So there is that. That's going to bring me to the wonderful segment of the unusual sport of the week. And I think what I'm going to try and do for this is I'm going to try and do it from A to Z. So, obviously we'll start this week with A, next week will be B, and so on and so forth of unusual sports. Now for A, there wasn't a whole lot, surprisingly. There's obviously a lot more as it goes down, but A is not a popular first letter for sport. So, the one that we have is called the Apple Race. And this takes place in Australia, believe it or not. And let me read you this concept. I'll try and leave a link. I couldn't find any videos, and I will leave links of any videos I find for these unusual sports, because I've been cheating and looking ahead, and there are some great videos of some great sports. But this one, there wasn't any. You can try and hunt some down. I wasn't able to find any. But, so the Apple Race, I'm going to butcher this. The full name of it is called the Great Huon Apple Race in Australia. I'm really sorry for butchering that, but basically what happens is competitors purchase apples, I believe from a local market or something, and they all go to this bridge, and simultaneously they drop their apple. They have a sticker of their number or whatever on it, and they'll drop their apple, and then they basically watch it race down this river to the finish line, and the person or the apple that finishes the race first wins, and the person with that apple wins. I don't know what exactly the prize is. Like I said, there isn't a whole lot of information on it. It's very brief type thing. Not a very athletic sport. I don't know if you call it a sport. I'd really call it more of an event, but it was the only A1 that I could find. So it's a very interesting thing. It takes place in Australia. You drop an apple from a bridge and you watch it race down a river. I don't know how long it takes. I don't know how exciting that would be, but it would be kind of interesting to see, if you had like 100 apples, floating down the river, how that would work. Maybe your apple gets stuck. Maybe, it hits a log or something, or maybe it's picked up by a eagle swooping out of nowhere, I don't know how that would work, but yeah, so that's the bizarre sport. That's your unusual sport of the week. Check that out. Do some more research on it if you're interested in it. But yeah. So next week we'll go to B and see if we can get something a little more intense with a little more information. But that's how we're going to start it off. So lastly, to kind of round things up, we're going to do some picks. I'm going to make some picks. Now, I'm still kind of figuring out how I want to do these picks, but I'm figuring I'm going to do like 5 picks of big sporting games that week. I'll try and mix up the sports, but this week, we're keeping it a little simple just because we got playoffs going on. So what I'll do is we'll pick some NBA games, we'll pick some NHL games, and then I got a little bonus pick for you at the end, and we'll see what you think. So first pick, we're going to do game 5 of the Cavaliers Raptors, because game 4 would have already happened by the time this comes out. So game 5, Toronto at Cleveland, with it being at Cleveland, and if Cleveland wins tonight, game 4 that is, then Cleveland is going to take the series if they're up 3-1. So plus it being at Cleveland, I'm going to take LeBron and the Cavs at home in game 5 for that game. I think it's going to be quite easy for them, even if they lose tonight. For Thunder and Warriors, how are Golden State going to respond? They always find a way to respond. It's just in their nature. It's how they do it. I still believe they haven't lost 2 games in a row. I don't know if that's still a thing or not. So let's do game 4, Golden State at OKC. They still haven't lost 2 games in a row, and I think they still won't lose 2 games in a row. And they take game 4 on the road in OKC. Steph Curry, I think he's going for 40. I think Klay Thompson gets 30. Draymond Green, I may go on the limb and say he gets a triple-double. I think that's how they're going to respond. If Draymond Green plays, that is. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets suspended. But if he's playing, I think you're going to be close to triple-double area for him in Game 4. All right, so next we got Penguins and Lightning going back to Tampa Bay for Game 6 on Tuesday night. This is a tough one. With Murray, I'm expecting Murray to be back in net. It is 3-2 Lightning on their home ice. Does do, guys like Sidney Crosby, like Evgeny Malkin, like Phil Kessel, can they step up for their team and force Game 7 at home? I don't know. I think this Lightning team has just been clicking, even with the injuries. That home crowd is great in Tampa Bay. I think Vasilevsky does just enough. I think it's going to be a one-goal game. Could potentially be another overtime game. But I think Tampa Bay will pull this out, end the series. So I got Tampa Bay taking Game 6 and moving on to the finals for the second straight year. In the West, that's a whole nother thing. Like I said, Game 5 is, as I'm recording this, Monday night. So I don't know how that's going to go. So I'm going to pick Game 6, St. Louis at San Jose. And, St. Louis blew San Jose out at San Jose. Can they come back home and defend their home with, I believe they're going back to Jake Allen. That'll be interesting to see. But then going back to San Jose with Martin Jones, I still think St. Louis gets it done on the road. So I don't know how Game 5 will go, but I have St. Louis winning Game 6. So there are my playoff picks. But that's not the only playoffs going on right now. The other one is in the Mexican Premier League. The Liga MX are now in the finals with, forgive me for butchering this again, Pachuca versus Monterrey, forgive me. So those are the two teams in the finals. I honestly haven't followed it. I haven't looked into it. So I'm going to take a shot in the dark for these and hope that I'm right. So I'm going to go with Monterrey. I don't know why, but that's my fifth pick and kind of my random pick of the week. So next week we'll check in and see how I did. And, hopefully I did all right. And, yeah. So that pretty much does it for this week. We're almost at just under an hour, which isn't bad. I don't know how long these are going to be. Hopefully an hour or so, I think, is pretty normal, pretty decent time. So, yeah, that wraps it up. Make sure to follow me on Twitter from Iowa with Love. Follow my blog. I'll leave a link in the description. I'm going to be writing a whole bunch of stuff this summer and so on, so check out that. What else is there? Subscribe to this, whether you're watching this on YouTube, listening to this, wherever you're listening to this. I don't know where I'm posting it all yet, but subscribe for more. I'll be back next week. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope leave your suggestions, feedback, everything. I don't know how I did. Let me know. So I guess I'll talk to you guys later and see you next week. But thank you for listening in. I've been Colin Peters and I'm signing out. Later.